So today I'm going to be talking about two of my favorite games, Limbo and Inside. And you don't see me, but I'm here in the field with Dart, who's chillaxing, and we're going to be talking about this game. So, you excited, Dart?
Totally.
He said totally. So here's how this works, basically. I'm going to rate based on different categories, and so the one that ends up getting the most is the game I think is actually the better one, and what I think most people should agree is the better one, even though it's all subjective. Basically, if a category is confirmed to be most likely to belong to someone, I will give them a full point, but if it's a more debatable and subjective point, then they get only a half a point, depending on who I give it to. Now, Spider has a lot of symbolism towards him being represented as Death and the Grim Reaper a lot, to where the kid might have arachnophobia towards him, which I don't personally believe, because all of the characters in the game are affected by him, including the Lost Teens, which I'll get into mentioning later. And so, basically, the Lost Teens are another antagonist in the game. They're like secondary antagonists, though, and they are afraid of the Spider, and so their weapons are actually based on the Spider. And they try to use them to scare the kid away, which is the main player. And so ultimately, Spider has this huge effect on everyone to where everyone's just afraid of him and no one wants to go near him. And Spider, in fact, is the only character that actually kills anyone in the entire game. And when you see it, it's quite disturbing. Now, the Lost Teens are a group of these kids who are what I believe to be previously introduced to this world that is known as Limbo. And the kid not being among them is endangered by them. And that they have what I believe it is that they are from World War II, based on their clothing and the weapons that are in the environment itself that they exist in. And honestly, it makes me think there's a time-lapse thing to where it doesn't matter what time period you are in, because it's basically a purgatory of sorts. However, it doesn't matter because in this Limbo world, you can die, and that's shown when the teens get killed off later on. So, as the words of Great Dart, he says this: you cannot be the first to die if you've killed someone. And that's what Spider is, basically. Spider killed a bunch of people, and so Kid killed him, and then Spider died. And the thing is that Spider dies kind of quick in the game. It's kind of disappointing. And so for the third and final enemy type in Limbo, there are these things I can call the suicide slugs. And what they do is they force you to commit suicide and drown yourself to death. And so ultimately, they cause a lot of puzzle problems, but, like, honestly, they're really intimidating in that alien-like way, because you get to witness them kill a person in which you literally have to use their body to cross over the water they very much drowned in, and it's kind of disturbing, honestly. It's really depressing to be dealing with all these different enemies, and yet they keep on killing each other equally as much as they want to kill you. And so, yeah, the suicide slugs, they're not fun to mess with, and it brings up the point that the kid will drown and basically kill himself and die, which always sucks. Quick word from Dart about one of the main antagonists from Inside.
There's this mermaid person who follows you around throughout the game at certain parts underwater and is kind of creepy.
As you said, she was kind of creepy. Like, in comparison to Spider, I personally don't like her. Like, she's fine, she does her job, but she's honestly, like, in the very beginning, I already knew what her character was gonna be. She's gonna be this friendly person who, in actuality, is not a bad creature, but is actually just a normal human being with a depressing backstory. And so, honestly, it's kind of disappointing, because in comparison to Spider, Spider is purely evil, whereas Lady, also known as a mermaid by Dart, is honestly, like, sympathetic. And so I understand, like, complexity in a villain is good, but that doesn't fit the world of Arnt Jensen's games, in my opinion, because everything else in all the other villains and enemy types are ruthless, and I think that that's a trend that should have been kept. And with Lady being the main antagonist from Inside, it just is kind of unfortunate, especially since she lasts a lot longer than Spider, and honestly, they could have done a better job with her. She does give you the ability to breathe underwater, which is good and all, but it's like, I don't know. It is really good with its symbolism and stuff, but I'll get more into that later. Now, Dart, what is your opinion on the dogs that are featured in the Inside video game?
They are dogs.
Okay, like Dart said, they are dogs, and yet these dogs are really ruthless. They're kind of like the closest thing to something that is intense in the game. Like, it's probably the most intense thing to fight against in the whole game, because they do kill you very easily, and that they are completely faster than you, and if they get an opportunity, they will kill you. And you have to just keep your distance from them. And so a lot of the puzzles relate to them, but if you make a mistake in these puzzles, they will kill you instantly. And as far as enemies, that's it, basically. There are the people that in the beginning of the game that hunt you down and try to tranquilize you. But honestly, like, that was good at first, but then they never attack you ever again after that. And it's just the dogs and it's just Lady. And so basically, as far as enemies are concerned, I think Limbo has the clear win here, because Spider has a huge influence on people. Spider is a defining feature of the Limbo game, despite actually being in it less than the mermaid from Inside. And honestly, I'm giving the point to Limbo. The art design for Limbo is very easy and simple. It's a black and white monochromatic game, and so what that means is just that. It's just black and white. And so, ultimately, it works really great in the video game's favor. It makes it look like a film noir, almost. And it causes a real good mood. It just sucks you in very quickly with this really mysterious and somewhat depressing atmosphere that is adored by nearly everyone. And so, honestly, like, it actually is very effective for the game itself, in that lighting plays a big role in it. There are moments where it will get really dark and a source of light is the only thing you can see. You cannot see a thing. Everything is pitch black and you're playing this game and you're in danger. And so it's just really well done. The art design favors in the gameplay itself, which I think is really impressive. There's not a lot of games to where the lighting is an effective tool towards how the game is played. And nonetheless, the art style. There are very few games I know that are monochromatic. In fact, I don't know any games that are really monochromatic, at least ones that are black and gray and white like Limbo is. So in contrast, Inside has actual physical colors, although they're really dark colors. It's a very dark palette, to where like the only prevalent coloring is in the main character's shirt, which is red. And ultimately, there's just a lot of soft colors. It puts a mood similar to Limbo, to where it's kind of like depressing. It kind of has a World War II feel to it, more so than Limbo does, which is kind of odd, although that doesn't last for long. It lasts for the first 5 minutes of the game before it switches off on that and starts focusing more on like really flat, dry colors, wet sometimes. There are a lot of great moments that I think would not work well in Limbo. For example, the water in itself is beautiful, like immensely. And so when you actually are swimming around, it's just really great looking, honestly. I think the problem with it is that it doesn't affect the game like it would in like Limbo, for example. And I think that's a really huge diminish on it. It doesn't favor it. And so I think also people care more about the unique art style of Limbo than they do Inside. Like Inside is admittedly good looking, although it's not like perfect. So with this, I believe personally, this is more of a subjective opinion, because some people probably might like Inside more, but it's more like you could appreciate what Limbo did that much more. And so I'm giving a subjective point to Limbo for art design. Dar, what's your opinion on the atmosphere in Inside?
It's kind of dark and depressing.
Yeah, that's kind of obvious, Dart. Yeah, okay, so Inside is very dark and depressing. It has a lot to do with zombie movies, more so than people probably know, because there's people being mind-controlled in the game. And honestly, like, it feels a lot like a dystopia, like somewhat like 1984, or even World War II during Nazi concentration camps for Jewish people. And honestly, I at first was under the impression that the game was in fact taking place in World War II, when in actuality it does not. And so basically a lot of the environment, like dangers as far as it's concerned, are from AI. It's three-dimensional, so you actually can see lights and stuff, and these lights, when they shine on you, these things will put these springs out and then tag you and then carry you off to get processed, basically. So Limbo, basically, the environment is drastically better than the one Inside. I can confirm this personally. There's a lot more going on. The world of Limbo feels a lot like this huge machine. There's a lot of things like when you ignite them create rain. And then there are things that when you turn them, it literally turns the entire world upside down slowly as you try to dodge saw blades trying to murder you. And so ultimately, it affects the game a lot more than the Inside. Inside, in comparison, just has these beautiful areas, but whereas in Limbo, it physically affects the game and how you perceive it. And honestly, the world of Limbo, it's like a man-made purgatory. It's actually interesting in comparison. It's really straightforward in Inside, whereas in Limbo, there's so much mystery to it all. The world of Limbo itself is as much interesting as anything else in the game. And so I think that the environment in Limbo is that much more better, which is why I think it's a certainty that it is deserving of the point. Dying in Limbo is really brutal. Now we're going to be talking with Inside's music, which I think is really good. Dart, what do you think of the music in Inside?
I don't remember it.
You don't remember the music?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Dart doesn't remember the music, so let me give you an example of some of this fine music. Now, from an article I read, apparently the music inside was 80s horror music that was synthesized through a human skull. Now, if that does not sound awesome already, then when you actually hear it, it is really it causes a really stressful, disturbing mood. And the music in the game plays a very important role in that it deals with a lot of the puzzles, and it deals with tempo and making sure you don't get killed because of it. There are parts where you have to pretend to be one of the mindless zombie people, and then there are parts which are the scene I'm showing you right now, to where the shockwaves will kill you if you're in there, based on the music alone getting louder and louder. And so ultimately the music is just real good. My favorite scene from either game is from Inside, where the music is just amped up and the shockwaves are coming and trying to kill you. And so the music from Limbo is very beautiful. There's a lot of moments where it really creates a mood to where you honestly start thinking that the kid is evil because he's killing and defeating these other creatures while very angelic music is happening. And so it causes you to start doubting your role in the game and making you think that you're actually the antagonist the whole time all along. And an interesting thing, at the ending of the game, there's a sequence very similar to the shockwave one from Inside, to where you have to keep up with the tempo, and it's just really intense. When I personally played it, I was jumping up and down with excitement, trying to stay calm and cool and try to deal with everything. So it seems clear to me that the music from Limbo is not as good as the music in Inside. It's just that the music plays a more important role in the game in Inside, and ultimately I just prefer it over it, even though there's a lot of good symbolism that comes from the music being played during Limbo. I feel like as far as what it does in a purpose for the games, I think it's a clear winner for Inside. What do you think, Dart?
Yes.
He says yes. Now, Limbo's controls are really interesting in that it's very unconventional for a game. Basically, what you have to do is you have to hold the A button to jump, unlike where you tap it in other games. And so what that does is that it causes almost every single person, when they do the first jump, to get decapitated immediately. And so honestly, like, it's definitely interesting in that it causes more suspense and you wondering whether or not you're going to do a jump properly, because it's much more difficult to do a jump. You have to get a running start if you want to go further, and you might want to let go of it sooner so that you can go back down. And ultimately, it's really hard. Plus, the fact that you drown and there's no swimming mechanics also kind of diminishes your ability to do anything. There's literally just two buttons you press. Even though Inside's that way, there's a lot more you can do in that one. I was going to ask for Dart's opinion on the controls of the game, but I realized that his opinion is really invalid. Now, Dart, I want you to tell me your opinion again.
I don't want to say it. No.
He doesn't want to say it now. He feels uncomfortable. So we're going to move on. Basically, here's the thing about Inside. Unlike Limbo, you can actually swim in Inside, which already automatically makes it drastically better. Like, I understand that it's okay that kid drowns, and it actually plays a fundamental part. But honestly, the fact that you can swim alone is a great improvement. Also, the three-dimensional aspect allows you to move boxes without worrying about them falling on top of you and snapping your neck in half. And another thing is that it's more fluid. The jump button doesn't require you to hold down on it in certain ways. It's really legitimately fluid, and where you don't have to feel concerned about over jumping or under jumping things. It's just one simple click, and ultimately I think that it's automatically better than Limbo. It has more mechanics, it improves upon its mechanics, and I think that it's just better. Now, the story in Limbo is heavily ambiguous. There are currently 30 different theories on what the story could be and on what the symbolism in the game means, and all of them have an equal chance of being correct. However, Arnt Jensen has gone and stated that none of them are fully correct, but some of them have been scary close. So honestly, it's really good at exercising your mind and figuring out what the true story of the game is. I have my own personal interpretations, but a couple things that people do know about the game is that you're basically a kid that's in a purgatory of sorts, and you're looking for your sister. Basically, there's a lot of emphasis on looking for your sister, and when the game ends, you find out that the kid and the sister have been dead all along. And a lot of people try to figure out how they died and when they died, and whether or not any of the other creatures and people in the game are real or not. And so honestly, it's really complex and real interesting. There's a lot of hidden things. It's like it'll probably be a couple more years before someone finds out the truth and Arnt Jensen finally can say, yep, that's the one. Now, Dart, what do you think of the story in Inside?
I really liked the story up until the ending.
Yeah, I think that is really agreeable that the story is really good and sincere up until literally the ending. Like the last 30 minutes of the game, you become this horrendous monster that goes on a murder spree, and which very few people I think should appreciate it. It's definitely shocking, and I think a lot of people, it will kind of scar them for life. Like for me, it was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in a video game. And I mean, like, you get like games like Evil Within, which is a lot of gore and violence, but it's just the context of what it means. The fact that this little boy you are fighting and rooting for this whole time ends up becoming this monster, and you find out that he's actually a slave like all the other mindless creatures. And it really sucks. It's one of those defining endings that really diminish the whole game, and it really hurts the game in my opinion. Whereas with Limbo, it's not as much. In Limbo, I consider it to be a near flawless game in story, whereas this one I don't, which is why I'm giving the point to Limbo in this. And it's a clear one, and that's it. So yeah, I determined that Limbo is the best of the two games. And so, what are your thoughts on that, Dart?
I've never played Limbo, so...
Yeah, I thought it was kind of obvious that Dart didn't play Limbo because he only commented on Inside. But yeah, one day he'll play Limbo. So I hope you all enjoyed, and so say some final words, Dart.
Some final words.
And some final words, Dart. Quote 2016, bye.